and every one of you to a brainstorming international webinar, Artificial Intelligence in Finance, conducted by St. Mary's College, Thrissur, Department of Commerce, with the most eminent resource person, Sir Kalidas PS. Once again, a very warm welcome to everyone presented here for webinar. So before starting our formal section, respecting our rich tradition and system, let's start by evoking the blessing of the Lord Almighty with a silent prayer. Thank you all. There are some instructions to be followed by participants, so please listen carefully. First thing, to keep the quality of sound functional during the meeting, please mute yourself when you are not sharing. Then second thing, if you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the chat box and I will bring them up during the presentation if necessary. Or we will also have time for questions at the end. Now, now we are starting our section. So may I now request our beloved faculty, Ruchi Mehta ma'am, for welcome speech.
Good afternoon to one and all, and thank you so much for joining us in this program. It is my great honor to welcome you all to this international webinar on artificial intelligence in finance, organized by the Department of Commerce, St. Mary's College, Thrissur. On behalf of the department, I would like to welcome our beloved principal, Dr. Sister Magie Jose, in her absence, whose blessings and love has always been with us. I would also like to welcome our dearest HOD, Jinu Joshi ma'am, who is the very backbone of the department. I welcome each of you on her behalf. I am very honored to welcome our resource person of the day, Mr. Kalidas PS, Director, AIR Chapter Dubai, Projects and Control Group Manager, Oman AIR Muscat, who readily accepted our invitation in spite of his busy schedule. He is a man with exceptional experience in the field of finance. He is a Director of Finance in AIR Charter, Dubai, Manager in Cost Control in AIR Muscat, Audit Manager in URR Associates, Cochin, and many more. He is a qualified ACS, ACCA, ACA, CMA as well. Definitely, he is going to be a true source of knowledge to all of us. It gives me immense pleasure in welcoming you, sir. I also take this opportunity to welcome all the faculty members and the participants from various areas across the globe. Once again, I welcome each and every one of you to this webinar. Hope you all have a good time. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. As we all know, artificial intelligence in finance is transforming the way we interact with money. Today, we have the most distinguished guest, Sir Kalidas PS, who have the lecturing experience in seminars on IFRS, industry-specific costing at CA, ACC satellite centers, and done corporate-level workshop for international taxation and investments. He is also interested in areas such as investment strategy, IFRS reporting, macroeconomics, fiscal and monetary policy, corporate strategy and technology. He worked as senior finance professional with 13 years of experience across full spectrum of finance, strategy driving business performance, IFRS-based financial reporting, audits, budgeting, and cost management. So, let me welcome the most eminent, highly expertized resource person, Sir Kalidas PS. Over to you, sir.
Thank you all. Am I visible and clear?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Those are really kind words of you. I wouldn't call myself eminent or anything. Still in pursuit of knowledge and excellence. We are all in different stages of the journey, I would say. Now, let me pull together the thoughts of everyone here. With respect to artificial intelligence, which we've been hearing for so many years, I'm sure some of you, when you bought your smartphones in the last couple of years, there is a mode which popped up in those cameras which said AI, artificial intelligence mode of photography. Probably that will be the first snippet of insertion of AI into our lives visibly yet. But how AI as a concept stands in our lives? Has anyone given a thought about it? I want you to visualize a particular day in the future for yourself. Let's say you're waking up, and in the process of you waking up, your smart bed has recorded all of your biological measurements. And as you wake up, the cot detects that you're woken up and it tilts in such a way that you don't have to pull yourself up. And then you walk into the shower, and the shower has temperature adjustments based on the climate outside and inside the room. And based on your personal preferences, even the shower would adjust its angle in such a way which gives you the best of the experience. And then say you walk into your kitchen, which is a smart kitchen, which has cooked the food for you as per how much you have exercised the previous day, how much of calories has been spent, and the biological readings of your body from earlier in the day. The food is cooked. And then you pull on your shirt. You're walking out into the garden to the garage. Let's say your shirt gets nipped by the branch of a plant, not an artificial intelligence plant, just a normal plant. And that's a small tear on your shirt. And the shirt has artificial intelligence. So it stitches itself, auto repair. And then you get into your self-driving car. And as you settle down in your seat, the buckling up is automatic. And then there is an assistant which reads out the schedule for the day for you. And it also tells you how your wealth management is going in terms of investment, and it makes some suggestions as to whether you should hold on to some or you should buy some specific investments or you need to offload some, basically a portfolio rebalancing effort. And then it sets out the schedule for you as you reach the office. So you walk into your office, you know that you have an interview scheduled for a candidate who is supposed to join your team. You're the one interviewing. So there is an artificial intelligence machine which reads up the curriculum vitae of the candidate and suggests you certain questions. And it also reminds you that once the interview is over, you got to come back and give a feedback to the machine. And the interview passes on, you give feedback to the machine as demanded by it. And then let's say the board of directors wants a specific report about certain commercials which has happened during the entire span of, let's say, last 10 years. And that's when you realize that you got to look up all of these invoices which have been raised, a particular category of invoices which have been raised through the last 10 years. And let's say the taxation was different across the years, the parameters of discounts were different those years, and a particular normalization would be difficult, and it's going to be a time-taking effort. But you're not living today, you're living in the future. So you tell the machine to pick up all of those invoices, analyze them, normalize them, and give you the result. So you walk to the coffee vending machine, you make your favorite cappuccino, you're back, and the results are ready. All of them analyzed, 10 years of data normalized. So you do your checks, and then you submit the report to the board. Life start easy, isn't it? And then you say, okay, you carry on with your rest of the day, and then there's lunch coming up. Okay, you're walking up to the lunch station, and that's the time when you get to call your friends and family. So your assistant, which is in a smartphone-like equipment in the future, it looks at all of the contacts whom you usually call in a patternized basis, and then it looks up who is free across different platforms, verifies their availability, and then lets you know a list of people whom you could try calling and speaking with. That's the world of artificial intelligence. And the world which we are visualizing through this example isn't very far off. It's going to happen in many of our lifetimes. And artificial intelligence as a concept has several building blocks. It's made up of a lot of platforms. It is made up of a lot of concepts, some of which could be attempted to discuss today, some of which could be just mentioned, and some of which I would leave out in the essence of time. And at the end of the day, I hope we are enriched with a concept and its applicability to our lives in the contemporary times. Now, the first question, pretty simple for everyone. What is AI? I'm sure many of you would be able to answer this in one way or the other, because you've seen the intrusion of AI into your lives already. Now, simply put, artificial intelligence, or AI, as they call it, is machines solving complex tasks which were done by humans until date. Not just tasks, but complex tasks, which require some sort of application of mind, learning, experience, discretion, judgment, and then the ability to present the findings in a particular manner which is accepted by that industry or the fraternity. Now, AI popularly is having two classifications broadly. One's called the narrow AI, and the other is called a full AI. Now, the narrow AI, as the term suggests, it isn't very intuitive. It is that stage of an AI wherein you dictate certain rules to the machine, and the machine applies its learning processes, the machine learning as they call it, and it gives you an output based on certain predefined set of rules. Now, the full AI is something which is only visualized as of date, which is in development in different stages. It is that faculty which has a predictive element to it. It is that faculty of an AI which mimics a human brain. It's that faculty which many fear would go beyond the functioning and the capabilities of a human brain and probably defeat it. Now, there are three stages again in the development of an AI. One's broadly the machine learning, which, as I said, it's basically giving a predefined set of rules to a machine. You could simply think of this form of an AI as something, if you're using Excel for certain analysis, I'm sure many of the commerce students in this group might be using them already, is the index match function or the if function or the isNA function. If this gives you this kind of an error, then the result should be 0, or a round m-round function which rounds off to hundreds or thousands or 100,000s, etc. Those are the kind of things which is speaking about machine learning broadly. It's a bit deeper than that, but it gives a predefined set of rules for the machine to understand, and it kind of functions within the framework. It doesn't get outside the framework and start thinking on its own. Now, this is clearly an input and output syndrome. When you move to the second stage of an AI, a bit more developmental, is called a supervised learning. What happens in a supervised learning scenario is that the machine makes certain conclusions based on patterns, multifactorial analysis, etc. And it expects the person who is wanting an execution to talk to the machine about its finding and tell the machine whether it did good or not, just like a school kid, a feedback. Now, a machine doesn't feel happy with the feedback like a school kid, but what happens is the machine learns in the process. If you say you could have done better, the result is actually this and not what you gave. That kind of tells the machine that the analysis need to be tweaked in a certain way, which would give the actual result. So that's more of a training methodology. Now, the third level is what they popularly call as natural language processing, which is probably, some of you would have seen the Rajinikanth starrer movie, or what was it called, Yendran. So there is a stage where, you know, he makes a AI-based machine and then he injects hormones, I think, and the machine is able to feel like a human being. By indicating this phrase of natural language processing, we are getting almost there. I'm just using some of these movie examples because you could relate to it rather than a very, a stringent, judgmental, concept-based approach to the whole thing. Now, natural language processing is where a machine would know emotions of the person who is engaging with the machine, a human who engages with the machine. It could probably go to the levels of, let's say, if someone is calling up a police control helpline and saying, let's say, an AI is picking up the call and say, hey, you know what, I'm in trouble. So the machine would actually be able to know whether the person is really in trouble or not by just analyzing his voice and the pitch and the frequency, and could go beyond that even. But if the machine is able to see the person, it could probably look at the retina and the dilation, etc., to analyze whether what the person is saying is true or not. Now, these are the broad stages of development of AI. And as a concept, AI is a buzzword these days, right? It's a contemporary, it is the happening thing. There's a lot of research happening on AI. Now, the question is, for some of you at least, if the phrase has been coined and has been in use ever since the 1950s or the 1960s, why are we talking about it now? Why is AI such a big thing that this speaker just chose to speak about it? Why is AI such a big thing that even if I didn't want it, why would smartphone companies put AI inside my phone? Or even if I didn't want it, why would my TVs be smart with AI functionality? Why would I need a smart speaker, etc.? Now, the interesting part of the world around us, whether we agree or not, is that it has changed quite drastically in the last 10-15 years. Some of you in this group would know that a lot better than me. Some of you might not be able to appreciate that change as much as me based on which year you were born. But the truth is that the world has drastically changed in the last 10-15 years. I would list down only some of the factors which probably has relevance to the topic. Internet as a factor has become quite ubiquitous. There was a time when we used to wait hours together for a web page to load in a Microsoft Explorer, Internet Explorer. It was a long time back, I think 1996. Yeah. So that's not the case now. Now we are moving to a situation when everyone across the planet, no matter they are in the range of a particular tower or a mobile phone's range or a cell phone provider's range or a satellite phone, no matter what, from any corner of the earth, you would be able to access internet thanks to companies like Tesla, who is working on these projects. Now, with this internet alone, all of this connectivity doesn't come into play. There are certain other factors playing behind the scenes, but probably not directly linked to AI, but they are worthy of being analyzed. There is a particular standardization and a leveling of businesses, processes happening across the globe. 30 years ago, probably a company in Singapore may have worked like a company in the UK, but not like a company in the US. That's not the case anymore. A lot of corporates have come to standardization and leveling of processes in such a way that a person who is working in a particular corporate, in a particular function, can move to another continent and without much of a adjustment or adaptation, except for the corporate culture or things like that, could transfer his skill set and stick with the standard operating procedures and protocols and continue delivering how he used to deliver in his earlier position. Therefore, like some of you may have read the book, The World is Flat by Thomas L. Friedman. It's a couple of decades old book, but it threw a lot of light on, it was even predictive on how the world is moving in terms of globalization and things like that. So this standardization of leveling of processes, as I explained, goes a long way to define how technology could be implemented in a way which is acceptable across platforms in a uniform manner. Now, what is happening with these two elements which I explained is that the connect of people with businesses, with technology, with businesses, supported by smartphones, other gadgets which are in the ecosystem, like tablets or smart watches, or even some of the corporate equipments which big corporates use. These have enabled a connect into an ecosystem which the bedrock, being AI, is perfectly conducive for further growth. That's the relevance of the time frame. Now, this is all aided by the connectivity and the faster growth in processing power. Every year, as we speak, there are newer processors for mobiles and as well as laptops coming up, which probably is 2 times more powerful or 3 times more powerful than the previous generation of the processors. Now, all of this is leading to a standardization of platform, of information, of access, of usage, and complexity. And this has led to some of the building blocks of today's or the contemporary times workings, which are worthy of discussion, just like the AI. Well, some of them are peripheries to AI, some of them work with AI. They are big data, blockchain concept, and cryptocurrency. These are relevant from a finance point of view. In the essence of time, I wouldn't be going into depth of these topics, but if any of the listeners are going to do further reading, I think these are indicators of where the tomorrow's development lies around. For students, I would definitely recommend that you should read what is happening in these areas. Probably by the time you land up in a job, it's like you wouldn't be able to neglect the existence of these topics, or you might actually be working in one of these. Now, we know about AI to an extent that this is something which is going to affect our lives. Now, from the point of view of economics, commerce, finance, trade, banking, insurance, how does AI as a concept impact us is worthy of a look. Now, AI and finance has a vast range. I wouldn't be able to cover all of these today. My goal would be to touch upon something which are relevant and which could be appreciated by students as well. The range of AI with respect to financial application varies from credit decision making, basically what you call as loan processing, or investment in debt securities, etc. So credit decision, thereafter insurance underwriting, commodity currency hedging, retail banking, equity broking. These are all topics where AI has a lot of relevance as of date. Some of you would have used HDFC's banking portals. You would have noticed that an AI tool called EVA had popped up maybe a year or a couple of years ago, and it's been in development ever since. And when you call up the bank and starts raising a complaint, or you want to clarify certain things, it's not a human you're speaking to. You're actually calling up EVA, and it actually tells you that you're speaking to EVA. And it could pick up, based on your query, it picks up certain keywords and tries to answer your question or direct you to the appropriate channels. Now, this is just an example of probably what you may have come across in the recent times. In the corporate decision-making process, like I said, a lot of credit decisions are being made into an AI-based judgment mechanism. Now, a lot more of it I would touch upon in a following slide. Insurance underwriting. As we speak, there are a lot of multi-factorial analysis built into AI-based algorithms, which look at whether some insurer, a reinsurer, should actually underwrite or not. They are also looking at factors like how much premium should vary across regions in the globe, across certain risk scenarios, across fleet size, etc. There are a lot of varied analysis going behind the scenes with respect to AI. And then comes equity broking. Even one of my earliest jobs was to act as a equity valuation lead a decade ago. And one of the difficulties I had faced at that time was that I had to pour through a lot of conference calls, transcripts, investor meets transcripts, board of directors reports, financial statements, to make sense of how a company's strategy is and how the company would approach a particular shift of doing the way of business it was doing then, or looking at how the financials of the company would be impacted by a event which is happening in the market, etc. It was the collection of information used to take a lot more time than the analysis by itself. Now, as we speak, from some of the ex-colleagues and my peers, I know that they are employing artificial-based algorithms, which reads a board of directors reports and analyzes financial statements, and even looks at certain factors which have been fed into the model to kind of come out with a forecasting of how the financials of the company will be in X years' time, which is a phenomenal development, if you ask me. Broadly, from the point of view of AI impacting finance, we could classify this whole thing into a very classic input processes output based approach. Now, if you look at the slide, what I have classified as the front end is the input stage. The processes analytics being the second layer wherein the analytics go on or the evaluations go on. And then the third stage is the decision support, which is the output stage. Now, what happens when AI impacts finance is broadly what we are going to take a look at through some examples. Now, data entry, you know that when a particular input is being given into a system, the data needs to be captured accurately and correctly, otherwise it's of no use. Now, the data entry as a job used to exist in some of the industries. Even today it exists. And the data entry as a job, as a function itself is going away because of AI. So what's happening is, with an AI-enabled system, you would be able to capture all the data present in a purchase order form or a purchase order or an invoice which is raised by the company or a particular declaration which is made by the company to any of the trade partners, etc. And even information in contracts. In commercial contracts, the AI would be able to read through the text and pick out the relevant things like when a contract is going to end, when the termination will be, what sort of notice time is going to be given to the terminator or the termination party of termination, and then what is the financial impact of the termination, etc., etc. All of these factors could be picked up by AI. Now, that being the case, the data entry as a function wherein you capture certain data from a set of documents, be it different functions in finance or banking, that function of capturing the data at a point is taken care by AI. Now comes the fantastic part of conversion of data into information. Now that's as quick as that in AI. Earlier, we used to employ people who coded that data into a format, looked at the integrity of the data, did some sort of work to convert the data into information. It's basically summary, totals, subtotals, all of these things. It's not required anymore. AI takes care of these things, and the results are fast and quick. Now, redundant processes, certain processes getting redundant by AI, or verifying data for redundancy, correctness, completeness, hashtag checks, or invalid data checks, all of these functions where some of the corporates have a lot of people operating in support departments who sit and analyze these data, those jobs are gone. AI does this all quick. Coming back to the second level, where let's say you have the data or the information, and now a bit of processes are to be run using that data. And the processes run in such a way that the data is ready to be submitted for decision support or decision making. What is happening is that a lot of these processes, which were run by people like us who went through a particular stream of education, who understand certain rules of how to process the data, they are not required anymore, in a sense that these processes are automated in such a way that the AI takes care of what is required as an output, and based on a predefined set of rules, it runs these processes, converts the data or the information through the processes into the way you want. Now, as an example, you would know that month-end journals are a common sight in all of these organizations which you might be working with, or you might have read cases. As students, you might have read cases of month-end journals being posted, etc. Now, a lot of companies are not having that activity of passing month-end journals in terms of IAS 37 provisioning or IFRS 15 revenue reporting wise, provisioning for guarantees or things like that. What is happening is AI takes care of a lot of these things, and as of that date of the month end, it would run these processes behind the scenes and prepare the journal entries, which could be probably reviewed by a manager, and then give a go ahead, and the AI would post that into the accounting software. Fantastic, isn't it? Now, that reduces a lot of human intervention and errors. Now, not only these processes are getting improvised, what is happening is there are a lot of businesses which are taking shape, which are coming into existence because of AI. A lot of intermediaries are coming into existence. I'll give you an example. Now, earlier, the model of financing was for banks to give a loan based on certain predefined set of criteria for the people who apply. Now, that's not the case anymore. You don't wait for a person to apply for a loan. You rather hunt a person to apply for a loan and then tell the person you need to take a loan because having a loan might make you feel good in life. I'm joking. So these businesses are in an intermediary situation where they're not banks, but they have a lot of data wherein they can find out who is most likely to take a loan, what is his credit risk category, and approach him for a loan and tailor make a loan for their requirements. And these kind of intermediaries, as we speak, they are at a global level, they are taking shape, and they're working with banks to get the capital, and they make money in the process. And also, with respect to processes as we speak, outsourcing has become a possibility, wherein earlier some of the functions could not be outsourced. Now there is a clear possibility of these functions being outsourced because of the intelligence factor within AI. Now, the most important part of all of these processes and AI is decision support. There were days when, in some of my earlier profiles, the management used to ask for a certain information to a set of people like us who used to sit on the floor, and they would want to make a decision. But what happens is you get stuck at a certain point on data analysis because the data either wouldn't be available. Even if they were available, they need to be cleansed in such a way that it is acceptable to management. Probably, I would call it normalized. The data need to be normalized and cleansed. And then it need to be converted into a format which is understandable in the context of what the data is asked for. Now, all of this takes time. The management sometimes run out of patience. As executives, we sit long days in office trying to get this as quickly as possible. Now, all of this is coming to an end with AI. In no time, AI would be able to gather the data, provided appropriate infrastructure is in place, of course, the AI would be able to gather the data, analyze, and present it in a way which the management wants. Now, this goes beyond a reporting syndrome. It goes into forecasting even. Forecasting is a very judgmental concept for anybody in the industry. In this meeting, they would be able to appreciate the view that when you speak about forecasting, it's rather judgmental, because you can make a definitive set of assumptions, but some of that always would be in the air, as they say. So the forecasting as a function, as an essential element of any business, is getting taken over by AI, which is less judgmental, and it brings a lot of value into forecasting by looking at each of the factors and tries to justify how a particular computation is made, wherein that factor impacts the profit and loss or a balance sheet item. One of the most happening things around us these days is fraud detection and prevention. You would be reading a lot of news in the Economic Times or the Business Line that government of India is actually using, or the taxation authorities are actually using AI these days to zero in and to limit the amount of fraud and other disruptive practices. Particularly in the case of GST, you could find scores of articles which told about thousands of crores of GST fraud being happening over the last 1 year or so. Thousands of crores. And one of the prime reasons was that the system was not primed up to compare what was issued by the sellers. The fake invoices wasn't detectable, as well as there was no cross matching of what was the returns filed by the return filers versus the sellers. Now, these kind of things are plugged by AI. Also, when the market production data primed up in the month of November, what they were saying is the AI was employed to detect in such a way that whosoever industry did well and whosoever firms did well in terms of their advanced tax, etc., was cross-matched with their GST collections, and they kind of zeroed in on some of these businesses which were playing around with GST returns and declarations. Now, it isn't far off. The situation that all of us would not be required to file income tax returns isn't very far off. The government or the tax authorities would have enough data to assess our declarations, or rather, without even declaration, they will be able to assess what's the income tax payable, and you could expect a pay order or a refund in no time. So this kind of a development of doing away with certain submissions, etc., in terms of returns, be it personal or be it indirect taxation, is happening as we speak. And the days are not far off that we get to see that we do away with a lot of these processes with the help of AI. Now, auditing is a very specific thing which actually doesn't fit into just one of these boxes, but what I would do is I will deal with auditing in a subsequent slide in a little more detailed manner. Just that I was an auditor and I'm a bit passionate about auditing. So now what I'm trying to attempt is, we have spoken broadly on the input processes and output mechanism framework. It's not possible to list out all of the factors where an AI would have an impact in detail. So what I have tried to do is I've picked up certain examples which are relevant for the audience here, which could be appreciated. And I have listed down how AI would impact in a stepwise manner across each of these processes as an example or a case study, you could call it. It's not a case study, it's not specific to a firm or anything, but as an example, we would go through that and then look at something higher than these examples. Now, accounts payable, as you all know, as a process, it's pretty simple. You get purchase orders. You have the goods received notes from the stock area, and you have the invoice from the supplier. You match them and you pay. Now, this three-way matching has inherent problems. Whoever has worked in the industry would know that the three-way matching is plagued with some issues. Now, from a point of view, AI could match these three documents very easy before paying up the invoices. Now, one another problem which you would come across in processing invoices is that the invoice might have a bank account which wasn't listed earlier, or the supplier might have changed the bank account without informing the purchaser. So these things also could be flagged with AI very easily. And AI could actually match these and find discrepancies in any of these things and prepare a mailer which disputes the invoice or requests for a correction, or if everything is okay, it just schedules the payment and informs the supplier that your payment is due on such and such date as per the contract. Now, all of these, mind you, are being done by executives who sit in the accounts payable departments in many of the companies as of date. But this could undergo a change, and some of the firms have already implemented this kind of a change. Now, what are the results of this kind of a change of AI coming in? It's faster turnaround. Some of you, if you have chased any of the accounts payable departments in the company, you know that one of their KPIs is to pay as late as possible without disrupting the relationship with suppliers, of course, but they're not famous for their fast turnarounds. And this would help fast turnarounds when the AI comes in. No double payments, which is an excruciating problem in a lot of companies. So no double payments if the AI is implemented properly, and very less errors. As we know it, AI getting in means a lot of human errors get rectified. Now, one of the key elements here is not about the process. It's about a lot of data which doesn't get captured in a traditional corporate setup from the invoices. Some of it has already changed because there are e-invoices as we speak. But no business, I believe, captures all of the information present in the invoices, but AI could change that. It would extract a lot of information from invoices, and as metadata could be used anytime for any sort of analysis. Let's say, for example, a production firm, if they want to know how many times in the last 3 years they had ordered a particular ingredient as a substitute when the original ingredient wasn't available, that data would be available with the help of AI in no time. Now, the example number 2 is risk evaluation. This is particularly from the point of view of banks or NBFCs. I'm not sure how many audiences here have experience or are working closely with banks or NBFCs in terms of projects or any other consulting capacity. But what's happening is, as we speak, one of the industries which are getting largely and wholesomely impacted by AI is banks and NBFCs. It's the credit section of the society. I'll tell you, I had opened an account with a bank just a couple of weeks ago without even speaking to a single executive from the bank, without going to the website of the bank. All I did is downloaded the application of the bank, submitted my documents. The AI verified all of those documents and sent me a comprehensive mail with all of that in text format. I said, okay. And then the account got opened in a week's time. I haven't spoken to anybody within the bank. Now, this is a kind of automation which a lot of banks across the world is moving into. Gone are those days when executives would come, sit with you, make you sign forms, check your documents, and then take a whole bunch of them to the headquarters, try and get it approved. No, not anymore. And you could even extend this. You could just give it a thought. We all know that the Life Insurance Corporation of India largely runs a lot of operations through the agents currently. How that is poised for a change is something you could give it a thought. Now, fraud detection is one of the key areas where AI is deployed by the credit card section of the banks or non-banking credit card companies. Fraud is one of the key issues particularly in the travel industry or the e-commerce. The fraud in credit card usage is a big problem. Somebody would just order an item with a fraudulent card and then disappear in no time. So there are certain algorithms in place by these banks which looks at the timing of keeping the order, the location of the card holder, his travel patterns, what is the currency of purchase, which is the website in which the purchase is made, is that a regular website in which the card holder usually buys things from, what sort of an item has been bought, is it a male who is buying a female item, is he married, things like that. I mean, probably the factors are different across banks which are employed in this kind of analysis, but as we speak, the fraud detection is pretty robust. Try if you're traveling to Southeast Asia without informing the bank, if you go and swipe any of your credit cards there, I'm sure if it's a good bank, you'll get a call asking you to confirm whether you tried using that card, particularly in countries like Indonesia or Malaysia. Now, transaction analysis. As a theme, transaction analysis has taken a lot of importance in the light of anti-money laundering laws which are around the globe. Now, there is a lot of compliance disclosures coming up because of anti-money laundering mechanisms across the globe. And one of these functions banks are required to do is to detect transaction which looks like money laundering. And who's in help? AI. Setting credit card limits, interest rate, and offers is something which I said earlier that I'd speak to you guys in detail. If you know of a IPO which got stuck in China around a month ago, it was by the Alibaba Group, popularly known as the ANT Group. They are one of the pioneers in this. What happens is there are a lot of section of the society which cannot get access to proper banking channels of getting a loan or a loan approved. And these companies who are non-banking financing companies like the ANT Group, they work with banks in the background. What they do is they find out people who want credit, very short-term credit, like probably a week or so, and then run AI to analyze a whole lot of information on what these people are buying, where is their capital, what sort of assets they own, who are they working for, what's their methodology of working, what's their working capital cycle. They analyze a lot of factors like this, and they make a tailor-made offer on what's the credit limit they would give and what is the interest rate they would provide for. And it's a whopping business. ANT Group is I think, second most profitable group in China. Now, speaking about credit cards, it goes beyond just using AI to get business. It's also about marketing. Now, based on a credit card spend of a person, where he employs what, where he purchases what at what point in time, and what sort of goods he buys, where does he travel, etc., etc. Credit card linked specific marketing is possible. And that's another thing which AI is getting deployed as we speak. This is not a futuristic scenario, but as we speak, this is realistically happening. As I said, auditing is a bit passionate to me because I was an auditor, and I'm closely watching on the developments through a lot of my peers in the industry. I'm learning about a lot of developments which are taking place in the auditing field with the help of AI. Now, all of these big fours, as we speak, the big four consulting and auditing firms are extensively employing AI to achieve the three pillars, to reduce errors, to cut down on processes and bring in efficiencies, and to better their analytics and reporting. All of the three pillars is getting focused. Now, some of these areas where AI helps in auditing is sampling. As you all know, audit sampling was a lot judgmental earlier, but these days there are algorithms based on the company's risk profile and things which would suggest, by analyzing the whole spectrum of data, it would be suggesting as to which of the invoices need to be sampled and checked by the auditors. It also looks at commercial contracts of the company and looks at risk of onerous contracts, etc., and then brings up a specific report for the auditor to check on what are the contractual changes which happen, new contracts signed, contracts expired, etc. Confirmation from third parties is a wish list as of now, but I think the big fours are moving to a scenario wherein the confirmation from third parties could be directly sought and filed by AI itself. One of the interesting things which I read about lately was that imagine a field of an automobile manufacturer where he stocks all the vehicles produced. A huge field with vehicles which have been produced. Now, interestingly, to do a physical stock check on the number of vehicles and the models, etc., how difficult it would be. If you were to fly a drone and then program the drone in such a way that it counts the models and the numbers, etc., job is very easy, right? And that's where another deployment of AI could be a lot time-saving and much more efficient than the current practices. Now, AI could be grown to such an extent that it would analyze the draft financial statements produced by the company, read the board of directors report, analyze for inconsistencies, if any, with respect to what information which is publicly disclosed by the firm, etc., etc., etc. This could be groundbreaking in terms of the development in the field of auditing. But we hope that audit as a profession doesn't go away because of AI. You would have all heard about trading as quant trading or algorithm-based trading when you start reading about AI. I mean, these were a regular newspaper topic in the last couple of years ago. Machine learning from historical data is already employed by technical analysts to look at making sense of how a particular thing moves, particular stock moves in the future, or are there patterns forming out of particular stock's behavior, etc., etc. Now, AI is also used, apart from predicting how the stock might move, AI is also used to make use of or make profit out of arbitrage in prices between exchanges, and to predict patterns as they form. It's in terms of technical analysis. If you study technical analysis, you would know that to look at a certain pattern after it has formed is very easy. And to say that I could have bought here, let's say the head and shoulders pattern, could say that I could have bought here and sold here. But to know that the head and shoulders is forming is that difficult, right? It's not that without AI we wouldn't be able to do it, but with AI it's much more robust and reliable. And apart from certain factors which impacted stock prices, what the industry is moving into is bringing in a multi-factor analysis where there are up to 64 factors being analyzed as of date to predict a particular stock's movement based on how these factors have impacted the stock prices in the past. and based on the economic performance of a particular country or a region, how these factors would impact this particular stock price. Now, as a process to explain it very simplistically, mathematical modeling was what was existing at the nascent stages of AI, where you make certain models on X% of return being happening if Y event happens, like that, a pretty linear approach. But what has happened is, as the AI matured, symbolic and fuzzy logic has come into existence, wherein, I mean, these are technical phrases, you could do a bit more reading on these, but fuzzy logic essentially implies that it's not binary as a 0 or 1, but it could be, the result of a particular analysis could be within certain range. Like, for example, if you're looking at a car, you could say that the car is 70% reliable. It's not like the car is not reliable or completely reliable. A particular model of a car could be 70% reliable or 75% reliable. That's an example of a fuzzy logic. Now, fuzzy logic has given way to neural networks, which is mimicking a human brain in terms of the predictive power. Neural networks are being developed, patented, and actively employed by big banks across the globe to predict stock prices movements or asset prices movement, including commodities, into investing. So trading is one of the areas where AI investment development is taking place at a faster pace than we all can imagine. And most of the corporate, it looks like they know that AI would be the name of trading in some years to come. And we shouldn't be surprised if artificial intelligence machines rule the roost compared to a human brain in trading. Probably there will be none left to speak after, I shouldn't say this, but Warren Buffett is getting old. Now, these all being the applications in terms of processes, analytics, etc., we shouldn't forget that given the ethical background of a framework of, as humans we are, governance, compliance, regulations, etc., is also of paramount importance. That's the reason why I included this slide in here, is that governance as a particular point of view is very important when it comes to a person approaching a particular process. Governance takes a lot of importance in how firms would dictate their behavior to the rest of the world. And given the localization also happening across different countries, governance is of paramount importance. Now, when it comes to governance, AI could be employed very, very systematically with respect to how AI could be employed in governance and regulation. I'll give you an example. SEBI, the Securities Exchange Board of India, they are employing AI to detect insider trading patterns. They are employing AI to detect anomalies in trading, which the foreign portfolio investors are coming through the FPA route and investing, etc. They are actively employing these algorithms to find out anomalies in trading, to detect and to plug the holes early on so that the governance framework is not compromised. Now, the Economic Affairs Department could be another governance body which could pick up some of these. And I think the International Financial Standards Body could also be employing some of the AI-based tools. Recently, I saw a paper wherein they were analyzing lease data published by big corporates across the globe in the light of the new IFRS on leases, which looked at how the reporting has changed across time frames with respect to these corporates. Now, these things are possible only with the assistance of AI, and to pick it up on a human approach and try to analyze that volume of a data would be that difficult. Now, we've seen some examples, I believe, I've been able to give insight into how AI functions and how AI impacts finance in general. Now, you could look at a coin and say it glitters, it's beautiful, but it's got two sides always, right? Now, AI is a hot topic of debate across the globe in several panels, wherein some people look at it with a bit of skepticism, some look at it with a bit of fear, and some look at it as an opportunity to earn cash. Now, AI could actually end up damaging humans is the popular view. Now, how we have seen that AI makes our life easier. I think I don't need to explain that. AI had made decisions faster. AI is continuing to make decision making as a stress-free event with reliable data available. But what actually drives AI? If you give it a thought in the light of human evolution, from the time of Neanderthals, we have evolved continuously to make our lives easier and more comfortable. And AI is just one of those tools which is happening as we speak to make that evolution happen is one of the views. And from an employee perspective, if you see that if I spend a lot of time analyzing data, let's say I spent 75% or 80% of the time with me, I spend that time collating data and preparing the data, and I spend 20% analyzing the data. The kind of self-actualization I would get referred Maslow's hierarchy of needs, not just this theory of AI, but the triangle of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Self-actualization being the goal, are we getting there to justify our involvement, the feelings which we have as to a productive work being output? Now, what happens with AI's assistance is that you get a more self-actualization, because at the end of the day, you have spent a lot of time analyzing the data than sweating over it to put it together. Now, AI can be made safe, they are saying, by putting enough safeguards and looking at how AI should behave. But it remains to be seen whether those safeguards would be employed effectively. Now, the arguments against AI is that it requires a huge investment in time. So some people argue that it's just a conversion of effort from a day-to-day effort and capital point of view, to invest capital much more in advance and then to invest a whole lot of time in developing this AI. This is one of the views, could be debated. The worst nightmare put across by people who do not like AI is that it would render humans jobless. Referring back to probably the BMW or the Mercedes factories getting completely automated, they're saying it gets to the government's responsibility to find jobs for the people who have been otherwise replaced by AI. This again is a hot topic of debate. Now, you would have heard this phrase, garbage in, garbage out. We used to deal with this phrase a lot when we studied information technology audit. AI is pretty much like that. If you don't give the proper training or the algorithms are incorrect, then the results also would be compromised. So this is a black box you're dealing with. So the implementation is the key, not the capability of the AI is what another view is. And the last worrisome thing is, what if AI overtakes us as humans? What if AI is able to get us into slavery? a lot of science fiction movies have been made in this regard or on this topic. And it remains to be seen whether AI would be controlled. And it also remains to be seen whether as humans, we would be able to evolve our thinking, which is at par or exceeding the AIs which we employ. I hope I was able to touch upon some of the relevant topics within AI. I would gladly accept any questions if anyone has come prepared after some bit of reading or has any of these questions in the light of what we discussed.
Okay, so with that, we will go ahead and take some time for a question. If anyone have any queries, can ask now. I think there is one question in chat box from Ebin Anthony. Will hacking pose a threat to artificial intelligence in banking sector?
Now, the question is a very good question. Now, hacking, as you all would have read up in a generalized term of how we accept what hacking it is, there are two sides to it. One is called ethical hacking, which looks at vulnerabilities in a system. But there is one side to hacking which is sheerly unethical and looks at profiting out of this activity of hacking. Now, if this person was asking about that unethical side of hacking, the concept of hacking precedes the discussions about artificial intelligence. Now, with artificial intelligence, what happens is the system would be trained to detect any form of hacking attempted hacking which is happening. Now, hacking would pose a system to the financial construct of a bank or a financial institution, or any institution for that matter, of national security or economic security. But because AI comes to exist, hacking would increase. Is that a question? The answer would be yes and no, because with AI and with what is going on around us, the whole of the generation would be digitized in ways which we are not able to comprehend. In other words, even infants of today, when they grow up, they would be educated in the ways of coding as well as dealing with systems in ways more than as a generation we are. So the number of people who would be drawn into this ecosystem of all the transactions, the records, financials being digitized would be more than the current proportion of the population who is exposed to that system. So naturally, if you take the probability of X% of the population being unethical and trying ways to profit out of this, the more the population getting exposed to a system, the more the number of people as a probability getting into that unethical way of trying to profit out of a situation. Now, you would have seen these movies, the olden days movies where somebody went to play a blackjack and he learned some ways of smart ways of playing an algorithm in his mind about how other players are reacting, etc., and made tons of money out of playing in casinos. Now that's not happening anymore, because casinos, particularly in the US, have employed a lot of time and effort and money into AI, and the artificial intelligence systems are actually beating humans from beating the machines back. And it's a continuous learning process for the machines, right? So they might actually flounder in the beginning, but they are picking up. Now, if that were the case, by the time a person tries to hack in, if he's from a particular IP address or a particular region, or is trying some covert measures to hide his IP address, etc., there is a probability that the AI would actually end up blocking it than the AI not being there. You know what I mean? So hacking might increase in the light of AI being existent, but AI's capabilities also would increase to prevent such form of a hacking. Now, another movie comes to my mind is Minority Report, wherein the Tom Cruise movie, wherein the artificial intelligence systems were programmed to prevent a crime even before it happened. Even when somebody got a thought of committing a crime, the machine would detect that thought and then prevent it. If that's the kind of AI we are looking at, then we don't have hacking problems. I hope I answered that. Anything else?
There is one another question from Jisna NP. Will artificial intelligence reduce the employment opportunities?
Yes and no. Greater sway to yes and lesser sway to no. And personally, if you ask me, I'm not a good judge of how AI is impacting the current field, because we are all operating in a kind of traditional environment even now. But I can tell you one example to the candidate. I had worked on a project with my earlier employer wherein we wanted to automate the entire accounts payable section. I was given this project by the CFO to spearhead the project and bring it to an implementation and success. Now, this ran for an year and a half, and many of these things which I described in these slides today were something which we actually worked on hands-on. Now, what we did is we worked with a consultant who brought in several systems, several tools, which enabled AI into scanning invoices, extracting data from them, to automating when the contracts expired and give reminders for the payables employees to renew the contracts, and supplied budgets against each and every PO which is getting booked, highlighted variances, did the three-way matching not in a perfect way, but to some extent. And this actually, the whole process of enabling artificial intelligence into a very traditional department reduced the manpower by 25%. So in my personal experience, I've gone through a scenario where AI ended up reducing manpower. Automation is what AI achieves as a first step. Now, when automation comes in, it is very natural that jobs are being done away with. That being the answer, there are other areas which could be weighed up, particularly things like consulting, things like not just business consulting, I'm speaking things like career consulting, things like migration consulting, things like travel consulting. These are all jobs which did not exist if you analyze the society a couple of decades ago. Now, these are new jobs which are coming to the foray. There are a lot of Instagram influencers making money out of nowhere, right? They don't go for a job. They just sit at home and they earn money out of Instagram or YouTube. And these are all existing as alternate job opportunities, not because of AI alone, but because of the broader framework of the connectivity, people hooked onto internet, people trying to make decisions from internet or based on internet and its inputs. For example, I recently read a report that it seems overwhelmingly 80% of the purchases of cars in India during the lockdown period went through at least YouTube reviews or the website text reviews of those cars before they went ahead and bought it. Was this the situation 20 years ago? No. So AI would create jobs which did not exist in the past or before the AI coming into place. And AI would end up in automating, making some of those traditional jobs lost. And whether A is equal to B or A would be higher than B, we would not be able to comment at this point in time. We'll have to just wait and watch.
Okay, to our final question from Sruthy S. Nair. Does artificial intelligence bring in the risk of privacy encroachment?
The answer is a clear yes. I'll give you an example. I spoke briefly about the ANT group in China. I think it's worthy of a case study for any student who want to read about it. Please go to Google, read about how ANT group makes money, read about how ANT as a non-banking company has made so much of profit out of businesses which could have been done by the banks. Now they saw an opportunity, they did well, and they employed AI really well. Now, talking about privacy, you would all know that there are a lot of speakers available in the market as we speak. I'm sorry. The Google Home speakers or the Alexas of the world, or the even our phones are listening to what we say. Even these days, by mistake, if I say, "Hey Google," I have an assistant popping up on the phone and say, "Look, I'm not joking. Just popped up." So it's ubiquitous. All the phones are listening to what we say. All the speakers at our home, smart speakers, are listening to what we say. The televisions are listening to what we say. Each and every transaction which we are making on the internet is leaving some sort of what is called as a digital imprint. It says what we are purchasing, why are we purchasing, have we left any reviews, how do we feel about certain products which you have purchased, do we have loans, are we prompt in repaying that loans, have we looked up what is the next asset you as a person you're going to invest in. Somebody would have gone and read cryptocurrency in Google. The next day you're looking at, let's say you're opening manoramaonline.com and trying to read Malayalam news, and what comes up as a pop-up is this cryptocurrency, brokerage firms advertisements on Google. Why does this happen? It happens because there are a lot of firms who are interested deeply in knowing everything that you do, everything that you engage in, and everything that you are going to do, because they want to profit out of that situation. This is not just about cryptocurrency. If you just go and Google up, all the celebrities are going to Maldives and they're doing photo shoots on the vacation. You just go up and Google up some of the resorts in Maldives. For at least a week, you would be bombarded with advertisements from Maldives resorts whenever you open any web page. Targeted marketing as we speak. Digital marketing. This is all happening because of these AI. And unless there are stringent laws coming into place on to what level of infringement of personal privacy can exist or can be tolerated from a legislative point of view, these would continue. And this is very difficult to tame because, as I explained, the world is very connected now, and there is a lot happening in terms of AI as well as the associated peripheral business processes. So, to put things simply, how much of privacy infringement should AI bring upon us is a matter of public debate, and it's matter of how each country assesses the risk and reacts to it. If you had read the news about a year ago, Google was called into hearings from the US Congress unto the Singapore end, the Singapore Congress. A lot of countries in between these two countries in the globe as well has heard from Google through different hearings as to their practices as a conglomerate, their collection of data, their usage of such data, and even to that extent whether they should be allowed to continue as one conglomerate was a hot topic of debate. So a lot of people are concerned on the privacy. Even I am personally concerned on my privacy, on what I do in the with my money or my financial transaction is a matter of concern. When I know that these machines are reading what we are doing and recording them. So, if you want an opinion from a personal front, I can tell you that instead of using some of these tools which actually gives away your personal details onto the internet, there are alternatives. For example, instead of using a Google Message services enabled Android phone, you could buy a Huawei phone which does not have Google messaging services, which will not give out so much of your information onto the internet. I'm just an alternative. I'm not weighing up one option against another, nor am I proposing or advertising Huawei. I'm just giving that as an option. Now, the second thing you could do is, instead of using Chrome as a web search mechanism, you could use some of those browsers which insist on giving you privacy, like the Mozilla Firefox. You could go into the settings and block out how much of each application in your phone speaks to the internet, etc., etc. To an extent, we can take care. Another example is to travel digitally blind, wherein when you travel, you don't swipe your credit card in the country you're visiting, but instead you take US dollars in hard cash, and then you spend and bring back and then exchange the cash. So no company knows where you went and how much you spent on what. So there are ways of doing around things without compromising your privacy to an extent. But yeah, there is a concern.
Okay. Thank you, sir, for giving your valuable insight on artificial intelligence in finance. It looks like we have covered all of our questions, right? Now, I welcome Ms. Shahuma KS for vote of thanks.
Good evening, everyone. It's my privilege to propose vote of thanks on this occasion. First of all, I would like to thank God Almighty for making today's event a resounding success. And I would like to thank Kalidas sir, who spared time from his busy schedule to grace this occasion. He has given a lot of information regarding the artificial intelligence in finance sector. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable information. And next, I am immensely thankful to our principal, Dr. Magie Jose, who continuously guides us through the process of learning and And I am thankful to the head of Nature, Ms. Sreevidhya R for the great effort for making this program a grand success. And last but not least, I am thankful to each and every participant of this webinar for listening this with a lot of patience. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Lastly, thank you from my end for giving me an opportunity to the college, its officials, the teachers, and the students. I see that there were more than 100 people logged in, and I'm really thankful for the patience exhibited. And my personal apologies if there was a bit of initial hiccups on the presentation, because I'm used to a lot of interactive classroom-like scenario wherein you see face-to-face and then you speak to people and there is a lot of life in there. But my webcam looks a bit odd. It has a Terminator kind of an eye, and to speak to that webcam was a bit difficult for me personally. But thanks again to everyone who showed so much of enthusiasm. I can see that still there are 80% of the people left in the group. So thank you for that enthusiasm. And I would personally make a request to the college to involve me in whatever student development programs as much as they can. And I'd be very honored to help people out. Thanks a lot.
Okay, great. We have come to the end of our webinar. I would like to thank everyone who made this meeting possible, and I thank Kalidas sir for valuable information and spending with us. Once again, we appreciate you all being here and joining us today, and we hope to see you all again next time. Thank you.